Yet everything you think you know about cannabis, it's not merely a plant, it's a profound examination, and frankly, most people are utterly failing it. You've been bombarded with simplistic labels. Weed is either a miracle medicine or a destructive menace, a mystical portal to enlightenment or just a lazy escape from reality, a sacred herb or a sinful indulgence. But here's the stark truth that cuts through the noise. None of these convenient little boxes even begin to capture the essence of what this plant truly represents. Cannabis doesn't bend to your preconceived notions or your casual desires. Instead, it acts as a powerful amplifier, intensifying whatever already resides deep within your soul. And that, my friend, is precisely what makes it so incredibly potent and for many so dangerously misunderstood. In the hallowed traditions of ancient civilizations, cannabis was never a trivial way to kill time. It was a sacred gateway, a formidable tool for transformation, wielded only by those courageous enough to confront the entirety of their being. No filters, no distractions, no escape routes. Shamans, mystics, and dedicated seekers of truth didn't use it to decorate their egos. They used it as a sacred instrument to dissolve the ego itself, to peel back the layers of illusion and meet their raw, unvarnished selves. Now, fast forward to today, and the landscape couldn't be more different. This once revered plant is ubiquitous, sold with the casualness of candy, smoked like the latest fleeting trend, and even worshipped as a defining lifestyle. What was once a profound, deeply intentional ritual has degenerated into a mindless routine. The sacred has been grotesquely transformed into a mere spectacle. This isn't a debate about whether cannabis is inherently good or bad. This is about something far more critical, what this powerful plant is truly doing to the very fabric of your soul, and whether you're prepared for the encounter. Long before cannabis was ever casually rolled into a joint or commercially packaged for profit, it was revered as a sacred key, handled with utmost care, profound reverence, and entrusted only to those who possessed the wisdom to understand which profound doors they were on the verge of opening. At the very dawn of civilization, this plant was never perceived as a simple recreational pastime. It was a hallowed tool, a potent substance intrinsically aligned with the subtle rhythms of the spirit, its use strictly confined to the sacred context of deep ritual, disciplined fasting, heartfelt prayer, and transformative solitude. Imagine ancient India, where cannabis was a sacred offering to Shiva, the formidable god of destruction and transformation, the divine entity who dissolves all illusions so that unadulterated truth can finally be born. His devoted followers, the sadhus, didn't smoke for mere amusement. They engaged in this ritual to symbolically die to their ego, to transcend the mundane self. The chillum in their hands wasn't a fashionable accessory. It was a sacrament, a direct conduit to the divine. This reverence echoed across cultures. In the sophisticated practices of Taoist alchemy, cannabis was meticulously blended with other potent herbs, not to dull the senses, but to refine life energy, cultivate profound internal silence, and trigger visionary dreams that offered glimpses beyond the veil. It wasn't employed to numb the everyday perceptions, but to awaken a far more subtle, heightened awareness. Ancient texts eloquently describe it as a spirit ally, a powerful entity capable of either sharpening insight to a razor's edge or dangerously unbalancing one's vital life force, the chi, depending entirely on the user's inner alignment and preparedness. To the unprepared, the uninitiated, it was never considered a gift. It was a formidable test. Sufi mystics too incorporated hashish into their sacred ceremonies, seeking to dissolve the individual self into the overwhelming presence of the divine. Yet, even among these seasoned spiritual explorers, the plant remained a controversial subject. The great poet, Rumi himself, issued warnings about intoxication that merely mimics true awakening, leaving the soul tragically untouched and unenlightened. The plant was only truly revered when its use led to the annihilation of the ego, not its subtle, deceptive amplification. It had to be wielded with the respect and precision of a master swordsman, lest it cut the very hand that presumed to hold it. Among the Rastafari, cannabis or ganja is celebrated as the herb of wisdom, the very healing of the nations. But its use is far from casual. It is deeply interwoven with prayer, brought into reasoning sessions, where words and smoke ascend together in a collective, earnest search for truth. It functions as a tool for profound communion, not a cowardly escape, and is never divorced from its liturgical, spiritual context. In those sacred circles, cannabis isn't consumed to forget the world's troubles, but to remember the divine spark that resides within it and within each participant. And yet, here we stand in the contemporary West, having largely turned this profound sacrament into a trivial souvenir, a fleeting sensation. What once demanded rigorous preparation, fasting, and focused intention now demands absolutely nothing. You can acquire weed at a drive-thru, light up casually between sending text messages, and mindlessly scroll through an endless feed of meaningless digital content while adrift in a synthetically induced calm. The plant itself remains unchanged, its ancient power intact, but the context surrounding its use has been utterly desecrated. And when cannabis is stripped of its ritualistic container, it inevitably loses its compass, its spiritual direction. When the sacred ceremony disappears, all that remains is raw sensation, and sensation without purpose, without guidance, invariably devolves into mere indulgence, a hollow pursuit of fleeting pleasure. The inherent danger here doesn't lie within the plant itself. It resides in our modern audacity to engage with something once considered profoundly sacred as if it were just another form of cheap entertainment. Cannabis doesn't offer a predictable, consistent experience. It offers potent amplification. If you approach it grounded and centered, it can deepen your connection to yourself and the universe. However, if you are lost, disoriented, and adrift, it will only magnify the bewildering maze of your own confusion. Most people, tragically, don't even realize they are stumbling into a sacred temple with muddy, disrespectful feet. And then they wonder why their experience is filled only with distorted shadows and unsettling echoes. There are indeed layers of understanding about cannabis uncovered within the Hermetic, Gnostic, and mystical traditions. Profound insights that are perhaps too nuanced for a brief overview but are vital for true comprehension. The unvarnished truth is that the plant doesn't arbitrarily decide where it will take you. It simply, and often brutally, holds up a mirror. That mirror reflects absolutely everything: your deepest fears, your unresolved emotional pain, your unspoken questions, and your hidden anxieties. It doesn't care about your vibe or your casual intentions. It cares about the truth of your inner state, the core of your being. This is precisely why, in most authentic traditions, the preparation itself was the real, crucial ritual. Disciplined fasting, sacred chanting, periods of profound silence, and meticulous cleansing, all undertaken with solemn dedication before the first inhale. This wasn't born out of mere superstition. It stemmed from a profound understanding that the mind must be rendered stable, clear, and receptive before it is expanded. Used with genuine reverence and proper preparation, cannabis is not a mere drug. It's a doorway. But doors, by their very nature, lead in both directions. They can open to illuminating light, but they can just as easily swing open to reveal disorienting shadow. And the most dangerous illusion of all is to blithely believe you can handle both light and shadow when you have adequately prepared for neither. It's no accident that countless individuals report unsettling experiences of anxiety, paranoia, or a peculiar sense of being watched when they use cannabis. Most will quickly dismiss these feelings as a bad strain, an incorrect dosage, or a simple chemical imbalance. But what if these unsettling moments aren't an error of the plant at all? What if cannabis is, in fact, performing its ancient intended function? To mercilessly strip away the incessant mental noise, to pierce through the comfortable veils of illusion, and to force you to confront precisely what's been lurking beneath the surface of your awareness. Think of the wisdom shared by teachers like Shi Heng Yi, who speaks of understanding and taming the monkey mind, those untamed, buried aspects of your psyche, the parts you've consciously rejected, conveniently forgotten, or simply never dared to truly look at. These aren't necessarily evil specters, but they are undeniably uncomfortable. not malicious forces, but profoundly inconvenient truths. It's the unprocessed grief you've tried to bury, the righteous anger you've swallowed down, the difficult realities you couldn't bear to handle. The plant itself doesn't generate these shadows, it powerfully reveals them. Like a high-fidelity amplifier, it doesn't compose the music. It just makes whatever is already playing inside you deafeningly louder. And for a vast number of people, what's playing is a symphony of unresolved pain and internal conflict. This is the crucial aspect of the cannabis experience that few are willing to openly discuss because it doesn't align with the marketable narratives of relaxation, chill vibes, or easy enlightenment. Yet, if you consult any serious, dedicated spiritual practitioner, they will affirm that the arduous path to true awakening invariably begins in the underworld of the self, not amidst beatific visions of light, but in the stark, often painful discomfort of self-confrontation. And cannabis, when approached consciously and with respect, can serve as one of the most effective and uncompromising tools for this descent. But this is only true if you are genuinely ready, only if you are truly willing to gaze upon your own unmasked face with all its imperfections and hidden wounds. In the realm of mystical psychology, this moment of raw exposure is considered sacred. It's not a sign of failure, it's a profound invitation. That creeping anxiety that unfurls after a puff, that disorienting, spiraling sense of self-consciousness, that rising tide of paranoia, these are not malfunctions of the plant or your mind. This is direct feedback. The system, your entire being, is responding to a significant energetic shift. What's truly happening isn't that you're losing control, it's that your carefully constructed mental filters are breaking down. Your inner guard dogs, the protectors of your ego, are panicking because the fortress of your conditioned self is being breached. However, our modern culture is woefully ill-equipped to guide you through such a profound and often destabilizing experience. There is no shaman present to hold space, no elder to offer wisdom, no supportive circle to contain the unfolding process. You are often utterly alone, perhaps in your room, staring blankly at the ceiling, your heart racing, consumed by the terrifying sensation that you are dissolving. And the truth is, you are dissolving. That is precisely what the plant, in its ancient wisdom, does. It dissolves the artificial constructs. It burns away the meticulously crafted performances of the ego. If you are not adequately prepared for this stripping away process, it can indeed feel like a waking nightmare. Not because the plant is inherently malevolent, but because the encounter with your unvarnished self is so terrifyingly undeniably real. Esoteric traditions have long understood this. In psychic self-defense literature, luminaries like Dion Fortune wrote compellingly about how altered states of consciousness can render the etheric body porous and highly susceptible, not just to profound insights, but also to external energetic interference. If your internal world is already a landscape of chaos and unresolved turmoil, cannabis doesn't magically fix it. It cranks up the volume, inviting every hidden fear and suppressed emotion to the surface. For genuine healing to occur, this surfacing must happen. But if you consistently run from that emergence, if you try to numb it with more consumption or distract yourself from it, the painful cycle merely repeats, high after high, until eventually nothing feels sacred anymore. Only noisy, chaotic, and ultimately empty. This is precisely why cannabis, despite its natural origins, is not automatically or universally safe. It doesn't possess the ability to distinguish between the prepared soul and the unready mind. It doesn't selectively decide who should be granted vision and who should remain comfortably asleep. It simply, and quite impersonally, opens the curtain. What you choose to do with what is revealed behind that curtain is entirely and often frighteningly up to you. And herein lies one of the most pervasive and dangerous misunderstandings of all. The deeply ingrained belief that the plant is supposed to make you feel better, to offer an easy escape into comfort. That is the insidious lie. The profound truth is that it's supposed to make you see. The pain, the joy, the confusion, the bliss, all of it is vital information. It is your spirit, your deepest self, urgently communicating, here, look at this. This needs your attention. But because we have been conditioned by society to fear and avoid discomfort at all costs, we often label these challenging moments bad trips and hastily walk away, having learned nothing, gained no insight, just another superficial story about how weed made us anxious. The reality, however, is that cannabis doesn't make you anxious. It ruthlessly shows you the anxiety you were already carrying, perhaps unknowingly, deep within. It didn't invent your discomfort, it merely unveiled it, bringing it from the shadows into the stark light of your awareness. And this uncompromising honesty makes it one of the most truthful substances you will ever encounter. But honesty, as we know, isn't always kind, and truth doesn't always feel good or comfortable. The plant is an unyielding mirror, and sometimes the reflection it shows you isn't pretty, isn't what you wanted to see. But perhaps, just perhaps, it's exactly what you desperately needed to see for your own growth and ultimate liberation. One of the greatest and most seductive spiritual traps is the tendency to mistake fleeting sensation for enduring truth. And cannabis, perhaps more than almost any other plant, tempts us powerfully into this very illusion. You light up, and suddenly you feel an expansive openness. Thoughts seem to acquire a profound depth they lacked moments before. Music becomes richer, imbued with layers of meaning you never noticed. Synchronicities appear like cleverly hidden messages from a benevolent universe, winking just at you. Your journal pages rapidly fill with insights and revelations that you would never or could never articulate while sober. It all feels intensely meaningful, deeply mystical, perhaps even like the pinnacle of spiritual attainment. But the crucial, often unasked question remains. Does any of this fleeting profundity actually transform you at your core? The high, in and of itself, can be incredibly seductive. It masterfully mimics transcendence. It skillfully imitates genuine peace. But imitation, no matter how convincing, is not integration. Merely feeling expanded is not the same as truly becoming whole. Cannabis possesses the uncanny ability to create the appearance of spiritual clarity without providing the necessary foundational work to hold and sustain that clarity. And that is precisely what makes it so potentially dangerous, not because it inherently harms the physical body, but because it can subtly trick the soul into believing it has arrived at a destination when it has barely begun the journey. You might start to believe you've genuinely evolved simply because you experienced something that felt intensely profound. But true spiritual depth isn't measured by the intensity of an experience. It's measured by what you manage to carry back from that experience into your daily life. And more importantly, how you live and interact with the world when the intoxicating effects inevitably fade. Many regular cannabis users report experiencing sudden breakthroughs, powerful realizations about their past trauma, a profound sense of oneness with all life, or an acute feeling of being completely present in the moment. And these experiences are often undeniably real and valid. The danger, however, arises when these potent realizations remain suspended in the ether, unanchored to lived reality, unapplied in practical ways. They then risk turning into what seasoned esoteric teachers refer to as spiritual inflation, a dangerous swelling of the ego around the feeling of transformation, devoid of the consistent, disciplined work that actually sustains genuine growth. This phenomenon is what the Hermetic and occult traditions ominously called the false light, experiences that glitter with the appearance of enlightenment, but are in reality only sophisticated mental simulations. In Kabbalistic mysticism, this is akin to the sphere of Hod, representing the dazzling brilliance of the intellect when it becomes divorced from grounded, embodied truth. It glows with the allure of pure gold, but ultimately crumbles into worthless ash. You may believe you've seen the true light, but in reality, you've only been captivated by your own reflection in the mirror. It is no mere coincidence that many long-term, habitual users of cannabis begin to confuse fleeting insight with a stable identity. They start to wear their experiences like badges of honor rather than integrating them into the fabric of their being. They begin to sound overtly spiritual, act awakened, and liberally quote philosophers and mystics, yet their fundamental lives remain unchanged. Their ingrained patterns don't shift, their relationships fail to deepen, their underlying suffering doesn't truly dissolve, it simply becomes more poetically articulated. The plant, in these instances, has tragically become a mere prop in an elaborate performance of spiritual progress, rather than a catalyst for genuine, lasting transformation. Osho once wisely remarked, "Substances open doors that only silence should open." He wasn't denying their inherent power, he was issuing a crucial warning about their potential instability. A door forced open prematurely or without proper preparation doesn't tend to stay open, and the visions it offers can severely distort reality if the mind isn't truly ready and stable enough to receive them. The high can insidiously become a pedestal from which you look down upon others who haven't seen what you've seen, when in stark reality, nothing has been seen with true clarity, only felt with intense but ultimately fleeting emotion. The core problem isn't the insight itself, it's what you choose to do with it. Cannabis can absolutely offer valuable perspective, a different vantage point from which to view your life and your patterns. But unless that newfound perspective translates into tangible practice, into concrete changes in how you live and interact, it's just another form of mental stimulation, a spiritual sideshow. If it doesn't fundamentally shift how you show up in conflict, how you courageously face your own shadow, how you genuinely serve others, and how you navigate the inevitable sufferings of life, then it has become a spiritual distraction cleverly disguised as awakening. And that is the real danger. Not the plant itself, not the smoke, but the alluring story you tell yourself about what it all means. The high is not the truth, it's merely a doorway. But if you choose to stand indefinitely in that doorway, mistakenly believing you've arrived at your destination, you never actually step into the room beyond. You risk becoming addicted, not necessarily to the substance itself, but to the pervasive and comforting illusion of progress. And that particular illusion, the illusion of unearned enlightenment, is often far harder to detox from than any chemical dependency. This is precisely why traditions possessing true spiritual depth never worshipped the high itself. They utilized it as a pointer, a signpost towards something far deeper and more substantial. They never glorified the vision alone. They always asked what that vision demanded of them. Because real, authentic awakening isn't primarily what happens on the plant, it's what unfolds after. It's found in the profound silence that follows the experience, in the conscious choices that emerge from it, and in the humbling realization that seeing something once doesn't equate to truly understanding it. Cannabis offers access, not arrival. But the world today doesn't desperately need more fleeting access to altered states. It desperately needs more anchors, more individuals who don't just visit the sacred, but courageously embody it, who don't just feel the truth, but ardently live it. Cannabis doesn't just affect your thinking mind, its influence extends deeply into the subtle body, that invisible, intricate architecture of your being, which carries your thoughts, emotions, memories, and delicate energetic imprints. You can't see this subtle anatomy with your physical eyes, but you can most certainly feel its presence and its shifts. And when the plant interacts with this energetic field, it doesn't politely ask for permission. It powerfully amplifies whatever is already vibrating there. This is why, for some individuals, cannabis can unlock profound intuition, heightened sensitivity, and an exquisitely sharp sense of presence. For others, however, it unearths and magnifies internal chaos. This chaos isn't random, it's the direct byproduct of stagnant, uncleared, or imbalanced energy that has been residing within their system. Think of your subtle body as a finely tuned musical instrument. When it's perfectly in tune, well-maintained and clear, cannabis can act like a master's bow drawn skillfully across a violin string, drawing out beautiful resonance, harmonious melodies, and even the profound music of silence. But when that same instrument is dusty, out of tune, its strings misaligned and neglected, all the plant does is amplify the discordant noise, the jarring cacophony. And in that overwhelming inner noise, people often tragically confuse mere stimulation for genuine wisdom. You might feel more, intensely so, but you're not necessarily seeing more clearly. You're just louder inside. And when your inner sacred space becomes crowded and cluttered with amplified noise, true clarity becomes an impossible aspiration. Traditions that possess a deep understanding of these energetic dynamics speak frequently of energetic hygiene. This isn't some obscure mystical concept. It's fundamental spiritual self-care, akin to how showering is essential physical hygiene. Practices such as disciplined fasting, conscious breathwork, sacred chanting, invigorating cold exposure, heartfelt prayer, and periods of profound silence aren't mere spiritual accessories or optional extras. They are vital clearing rituals. They stabilize your energetic field. They ensure that when you choose to open a potent door with a plant like cannabis, you're not stepping into a room cluttered with years of unresolved emotional debris and psychic residue. In healing modalities like Reiki and other forms of energetic practice, cannabis is sometimes described as a field disruptor, not necessarily because it's inherently harmful, but because it creates a significant surge in energetic sensitivity. That surge can indeed help you access subtle energies and perceptions, but it can also leave you feeling unpleasantly porous and vulnerable. Practitioners who aren't adequately grounded often find their healing sessions become unstable, chaotic, or energetically muddled after using the plant. Sensations might increase dramatically, but their ability to control and direct the energy often decreases. The same principle holds true in advanced Kundalini work, where cannabis is known to sometimes awaken dormant, powerful energy before the body and nervous system are adequately prepared to handle such an intense influx. You might initially feel incredibly open, electrically charged, even euphoric until suddenly you don't. Until you crash, spiral into confusion, or find yourself utterly unable to ground the overwhelming experience in any meaningful or sustainable way. Amazonian shamans, who have worked intimately with plant medicines for millennia, wisely say that every plant opens, but every plant also tests. And cannabis is certainly no exception to this rule. They believe that each plant carries a distinct consciousness, a spirit, a unique frequency, and when that spirit enters your being, it begins to communicate, not through spoken language, but through raw emotion, vivid memory, and palpable energetic sensation. If you are not clean, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, that sacred communication becomes scrambled, distorted by your own internal residue. Instead of pristine clarity, you receive only confusion dressed in the deceptive clothing of profound insight. This is precisely why so many people report feeling drained, unfocused, or emotionally raw and fragile after periods of heavy cannabis use. It's not because the plant is inherently depleting, but because they entered into the experience unprepared, without any prior clearing, without proper containment, and most importantly, without true reverence. It's akin to plugging a delicate, highly sensitive musical instrument into a distorted amplifier with frayed, faulty wires. The result isn't beautiful music, it's jarring, unpleasant noise, and the longer you're exposed to that internal static, the more it inevitably wears down your natural sensitivity and clarity. Cannabis interacts with the energy body, much like fire interacts with a dry, untended forest. It spreads rapidly, it consumes, it can bring forth illuminating light, but only if the space is already clear and well maintained. Otherwise, it just burns indiscriminately, without sufficient grounding, without unwavering clarity of intention, and without consciously established energetic boundaries. What was meant to elevate and enlighten can instead begin to fragment and disorient. You may find you lose focus easily, your willpower wanes, and you start living in a persistent mental fog that initially feels peaceful. But underneath that superficial calm lies a dull, insidious kind of stagnation. And here's the truly subtle danger. You begin to mislabel that fog as calm. You start to associate the dulling of your authentic sensation with genuine healing. But healing is never numbness. Healing is the vibrant return of clarity. Healing is the restoration of personal power, not its indefinite suspension. And cannabis, when used without keen energetic awareness and proper preparation, can temporarily mask underlying imbalances instead of truly resolving them. So the crucial question you must ask yourself becomes, is your system truly clean enough to receive clarity? Have you meticulously prepared your inner temple before you invite the spirit of the plant in? Because cannabis doesn't clean the house for you, it just powerfully turns on all the lights. What you ultimately see depends entirely on what was already there, hidden in the shadows of your unprepared self. Once upon a time, in ages past, cannabis was approached with solemnity, its use reserved for moments when the soul was truly ready, prepared, and seeking profound connection. Now,